I refuse to believe that it's 5 in the morning. I refuse to believe that 2 hours of witty conversation, non-stop charm, have been terminated because you decided to play Dudley Do-Right. That woman was so fine, she could kickstart a 747.
Did you bring the money, Mom?
Crummy two-key deal. Probably won't even get past the preliminary.
It was supposed to be a lightweight deal.
Yeah, it's what we thought, till the fireworks started. Freeze! Miami Vice!
Fast cars, flashy clothes, big money, heavy players, and the hot Miami scene.
These were the main ingredients that made Miami Vice one of the most innovative shows of the 1980s. Journey with Tim and Mark as we take a peek into the drama series with an MTV feel on the Vice of Miami podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Vice of Miami podcast for show number 4. We're glad you're joining us today. This is Mark.
And this is Tim.
And we hope you enjoyed our last episode where we reviewed Miami Vice Episode 2, Heart of Darkness. Today's show covers Episode 3, Cool Runnin'. Well, Tim, let's get on with the show.
All right, Mark. Well, in this podcast of ours, Episode 4, we're going to be reviewing Season 1, Episode 3, titled Cool Runnin'. It was written by Joe Cernow, directed by Lee Katzin, and the original air date was October 5th, 1984.
Okay, this is the part of the show where we're going to call it Etc. It's where we're going to go over the plot, the guest stars, co-stars, filming locations, goofs, music, and fun facts and trivia. Let's go over the plot summary really quick. Crockett and Tubbs must enlist the help of an unreliable petty thief to bust a drug operation run by a trio of homicidal Jamaicans. In that, we meet the colorful, conniving thief named Noogie Lamont, a.k.a. the Noog Man. Zito and Switek continue their fencing ring, and the reality of divorce sets in for Crockett and Caroline.
Now we're going to highlight the guest stars of the show. First up is Charlie Barnett as Nugart Noogie Lamont. An American actor born in 1954 in West Virginia, Charlie was raised by his grandmother as his parents suffered from alcoholism and mental illness. At the age of 11, he left home rather than being put in reform school. He met up with his mom in Boston but was kicked out of the home within a year. This led him to a life of crime and drugs. At 19, he went to New York City to try his skill at acting. He lost out to Eddie Murphy when auditioning for Saturday Night Live. He made his film debut in 1983 movie DC Cab. His Miami Vice role would lead to 5 episodes, but a drug-fueled incident with Don Johnson led him to being banned from the set. His role would later be phased out. His last appearance would be in Missing Hours. After Miami Vice, he would appear in My Man Adam, Nobody's Fool, and Charlie Barnett's Terms of Enrollment. His final movie role was They Bite in 1996, just before his death that year due to AIDS, possibly from his drug use.
Next up, we have Larry Riley as Detective Bobby Price. Born in 1952 in Tennessee, he's an American actor. Larry found his way to New York City via Chicago to begin acting. He landed a role in Fosse's Pippin, replacing Ben Vereen. He wrote and composed the music for the play, A Soldier Story, which he acted in as well. His TV debut was on the soap opera called The Doctors and also Hill Street Blues. Larry had other TV roles, but his most popular was on Knots Landing as Frank Williams. Larry suffered from a drug and alcohol addiction most of his adult life and was diagnosed with HIV in 1989. Larry passed away in June of 1992.
Then we had Belinda Montgomery reprising her role as Caroline Crockett.
Okay, we're going to go over some of the music really quick. First, we have King Tubby Meets the Rockers, Uptown by Augustus Pablo. Feel the Spirit by The Waiting Souls is next.
And we also had Reality Dub by Linton Kwesi Johnson and Jammin' by Bob Marley and the Wailers. All right, now we're going to, as part of our etc., we're going to cover the goofs and fun facts and locations. Tubbs uses a 1980s version of a taser on Winston, one of the Jamaicans, to put him out of action.
In the previous episode, Heart of Darkness, Tubbs gave Switek and Zito some pointers on improving their stolen goods sting operation. Among his suggestions was that they place a centerfold near the fake TV containing the video camera to get their perps to look up at it. In this episode, we see that they have taken his advice. In fact, Noogie falls for the centerfold trick, identifying the magazine on display as Hustler 1982.
Next location is at the very end of the episode where Biscayne General Hospital, where we see that Noogie is leaving and where Jake is recovering, was also used as a hospital backdrop in the series The Golden Girls, also set in Miami but filmed in Los Angeles. When The Golden Girls premiered in 1985, viewers referred to it as Miami Nice.
The submachine guns used by the Jamaicans are identified several times in dialogue as Interarms KG-99 machine pistols. However, none of the Jamaicans actually use this weapon. Instead, they arm themselves with the Star Z62 and the Smith & Wesson M76. Interestingly, the KG-99 does appear several times in Season 1, most notably in Smuggler's Blues, where both Crockett and Jimmy Cole use one, but not in this episode.
On a North Miami Venetian Causeway, Biscayne Boulevard, Freedom Tower, which is the opening chase between Crockett and Tubbs and the dealers, ends at the current site of American Airlines Arena.
The footage of Crockett and Tubbs speeding through the night in Crockett's Daytona with the car skipping off the camber of the Miami streets would be reused in Calderon's Return Part 1 and Give Little, Take a Little.
At one point, Tubbs accuses Crockett of cutting too many corners in order to close the case, to which Crockett responds, "What, and you didn't?" This is seemingly a reference to the events of Brother's Keeper, in which Tubbs falsified paperwork and assumed his dead brother Raphael's identity in order to pursue his killers to Miami.
All right, now to the trivia. In the last show, we asked you what albums does Elvis chew up that belong to Crockett? Well, here's your answer.
Disrespectful, pathetic excuse for a living creature. That does it. That does it this time. You have done it. You have done it. I have had it.
Hey, Crockett, ease up, man.
Ease up. He just devoured my entire Buddy Holly collection. What is it with you? How would you like it if somebody chewed up your personal belongings?
And now, Mark, here is this week's trivia question, which is, how much did the lobster cost during the party on the St. Vitus dance? Just if you remember, that's when Tubbs was carrying it on the St. Vitus, and then he ended up dumping it in the water when he tripped. You can post your answers on this episode's Facebook post, or you can email us at viceofmiamishow@gmail.com. We will air some of the answers. This is for fun, no prizes. All right, now we've come to the part of the show where we hope to inspire or enlighten. In both the world of Miami Vice and our current world at large, we encounter many challenges we work to overcome. In the interest of creating a family and friendly atmosphere through this show and on our social media platforms, Mark and I would like to offer some parting thoughts, a simple quote, phrase, or words of encouragement to you, our listeners, because without you, our friends, we'd just be talking to ourselves. And we say friends because that's what we consider all of you who follow our discussion. You are our friends, whether or not we have met in person or interacted on social media. Today, we leave you with the words of Australian author Kate Forsyth when she said, "May my heart be kind, my mind fierce, and my spirit brave."
Okay, now for the ratings. RatingGraph.com gives this an 8.2, as does IMDb.
I definitely love this episode. It gets a big thumbs up from me, especially because you have that colorful character who offered comic relief in Nugart Neville Lamont, as Tubbs so proudly announced, especially since he became, and he actually brokers his own terms of the relationship with him as a future informant. So, yep, big thumbs up for me.
Okay, and we'll bring this to our discussion for Miami Vice episode of Cool Runnin'. Tim, as I said in the ratings, I like this episode. It's kind of Short and sweet, to the point. Why don't we just get started?
Yeah, absolutely. In this opening scene here, we find Crockett and Tubbs on a stakeout at 0530 hours, or O Dark 30, as they used to like to call it in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And where Crockett was lamenting that this is nothing but a crummy two-key deal. As it goes by, they're watching this buy go down, and then ends with a ripoff where apparently looks like Jamaicans are cutting down some Colombians. And then we get to the Crockett Tubbs chase van to van going after them. So, what did you think about that part, Mark?
I kind of thought it was a little bit cheesy just for in the Miami Vice part of it, with Crockett and Tubbs. Cheesy as far as they don't really sit there and do the stakeouts and stuff. They're kind of, at least through the whole Miami Vice series, they're the hot action guys. They don't wait for nothing. I liked it. But again, Crockett and Tubbs just sitting there seemed kind of cheesy. But it was good. The shootout, the chase, basically all of this was also set up by Zito and Switek. They set up this it was supposed to be kind of like an introduction into these people. I liked it, but like I said, Crockett and Tubbs sitting there was I think it was kind of beneath them.
For what this show offered, yes, they weren't normally the setup guys, as you would call it, like doing the stakeouts and collecting that information. They're the guys that actually went in, interacted with all the drug dealers or any other types of vice like prostitution. They were the guys that got in there, assumed those character roles. They went to it. But like you said, it seemed like a little bit more mundane for them. But I think in this particular episode, it was kind of like an eye opener. They're at 5:30 in the morning and probably still got sleep in their eyes. And all of a sudden, somebody's opened up with automatic weapons, and that really gave them a quick shot of adrenaline to get going. After, they ended up losing the van as we moved on. Then you have, as it becomes light out, Lieutenant Rodriguez showing up, and he's all pissed off that this ended up not being a low-level deal, but another in a series of organized ripoffs. And, that was something that, how is this happening? Really what turns out to be just low-level stuff, introductory stuff, is really a higher level of a game.
Exactly. More than they bargained for. I think Lou said it when he comes up to the ambulance. This was supposed to be a lightweight deal. I'm probably sure that a lot of the stuff that Vice handles is supposed to be lightweight, but ends up being high level, high money, high stake thing.
Right. They're always going to go after, they try to start at the lower level, get those lower level drug dealers as a way, use them with leverage of saying, hey, we'll give you a deal if you give us the next level up type of guy.
Yep. And then moving on to pretty much the next scene was I believe it was the nighttime barbecue on the St. Vitus dance.
That's correct.
Got the two newer detectives boasting that they're as great as detectives, probably even better than Crockett and Tubbs. Is this where they set up the bet, or is that later on?
No, this is where they set up the bet. They're basically, they were recounting war stories and just trading them back and forth. And then I believe it was Jake that kind of initiated, hey, let's make a bet who can make the most bucks by the end of the month. That's where it ensued from there. And then we had the celebration continues. They were going to cook this lobster. Tubbs picks it up. He's walking and everybody's cheering. He ends up tripping and falling, and it gets dumped into the
Gulf.
Into the Gulf, and that's where this week's trivia question comes from that. So if you pay attention to that scene, you will get the answer.
When I saw this in the episode, the look on Tubbs's face is kind of like, you know what, just go back to New York. What are you doing around seafood? Go back to New York. You have no business here on the boat, especially around lobsters.
Yeah, Crockett's eyes wide open when he saw money getting dumped in the ocean. I'm going to tell you what, in 1983 standards, that was a more than a pound lobster. That was probably 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds. And what he said the price was, it's way, way more expensive. Although when you're on the Gulf, you could get it a little bit cheaper.
Actually, that would be the Atlantic, not the Gulf. Why am I thinking the Gulf? Whatever. It's all good. And then moving on, Zito and Switek, they've got a middleman named Desmond Maxwell. Ring a bell?
Yes, and Desmond Maxwell They were the ones that garnered this information and gave it to Crockett and Tubbs as being the guy who was the middleman who set up the deal that they saw was actually a high-end ripoff. And at that point, they make allusion to that, and then in walks none other than
What's my name? Noogie!
Noogie into the fencing operation that is still ongoing.
He's got pretty much a plethora of goods to give up. CDs, sunglasses. I also think he had some underwear he was selling.
That's correct.
But when he's in there trying to hawk all his wares, Zito blows the gig, and then Motormouth gets busted. Zito is messing around with the camera that's behind the TV screen. TV screen pops out, and then Noogie just sits there with his eyes wide open, like, what is going on? And he's kind of starts to sneak away there, and then he gets busted.
Yep, and then after that kind of scene ended, but it was that iconic thing that Tubbs had said that, I hope you got a lawyer in those pockets, Motormouth. That's when Motormouth was busted. A little bit later in the scene, then Trudy comes back and lets him know that she really didn't have any outlying information about Desmond Maxwell, was going to have to dig a little bit deeper on that. And we do see a very, very, very minor subplot that doesn't go anywhere other than the fact that Crockett and Gina are still romancing, even though you did not see that, the Heart of Darkness.
Right. It's very evident here for sure.
Very evident.
Not very evident, but it's still going on. So that fact is very evident.
Yeah, they were pretty darn close to each other, almost kissing, and so you could tell that's going on. So that's yet to develop in future episodes if we see it go any further, and we know that it did.
Right.
It was at that point though that Crockett gets served his divorce papers, because him and Gina were going to get together, and then Gina said, if you don't want to, and he said no. So that's the only other side story, and we'll come back to that in a little bit.
We don't want him yapping over 6 counties.
You must be joking, man. You're looking at Mr. Silence. You couldn't torture nothing out of me.
Name?
Newgard, Neverly, Lamont, the Nug Man. You got some pretty legs, mama. You can call me Noogie if you want to boogie.
At OCB, when Noogie is being processed, he kind of snags information on Desmond Maxwell. He snags a piece of paper that Trudy was trying to dig up on Desmond Maxwell. This is where Noogie kind of uses that as, say, bait for Crockett and Tubbs to get Noogie to be an informant.
Right, because he was trying to do anything he could stop from going back to the big house for his little fencing operation role. So yeah, again, he threw them that little tidbit that, hey, I know Maxwell, and he's the guy that set up that deal. Before he knows nothing, now all of a sudden he comes up with this little gem for them.
I don't know who the shooters were, but a homeboy of mine set up the deal. A fella by the name of Desmond Maxwell. Ring a bell?
It piques their interest. They, in fact, enter into a semi-agreement with him because, as we move on, you find out that Maxwell is Jamaican, and Noogie takes Crockett and Tubbs on a little wild goose chase looking for Maxwell in Jamaica Town. Crockett and Tubbs thinks that he's BSing him. They no trust yet in this relationship. And he said, no, man, Maxwell plays dominoes, and he says, I could take you where he's at.
But you could also see in Noogie's eyes that, okay, he's kind of BSing him. We all know that in the end that Noogie does know him, but Noogie is playing it off as, yeah, I got this guy in my back pocket. You could see in his eyes that he's kind of getting nervous because he knows has the potential to lead to something big and it could probably get him nicked.
Yeah, next it became where he's the, and then so then we find out, we see him, Noogie and Crockett and Tubbs in this little Jamaican hotspot, and he points out, hey, that's Maxwell's right-hand man. And he starts milking Crockett for
$60.
$60.
You trust this dude? Man, you better get used to working with informers. Down here, they account for about 80% of all of our cases.
Whatever Crockett had in his pocket to go and try to get some information, then he disappears with this guy, or what appears to be this guy. For some reason, Crockett and Tubbs, know that some gig is up because where's Noogie at? And it turns out that Noogie bolts on him, but he doesn't get too far away from him.
After Noogie gives Crockett and Tubbs a slip out of the bathroom at the Domino's place there, Crockett and Tubbs catch up with him. He pulls his theatrical little stunt flopping, I think he was flopping in the street there. And then they end up just stuffing him in the trunk because there's no more than 2 seats in the Spider. Too bad, Noogie.
In the trunk, that's right. And Nate told him, "Gig's up, buddy. You're going back to the big house." Then after that, we segue into Sonny having to go meet Caroline and her lawyer. It appears at first face value that the divorce is amicable. She drops the bomb on Sonny that she's going to be moving back to Atlanta for a job. And Sonny said, no way, because initially said, and the lawyer said, yeah, when it came to custody, he said, yeah, 45 minutes I could be there, no problem. And then that's when that bomb was dropped. And then there was no way that he's going to go for that. She is not going to back down. And what turns out that seemed to be amicable because they were going to make their split with property and assets, ends up that Sonny leaves there and he's ready for a big fight.
Caroline has informed me that there won't be any problems with the settlement. Properties, insurance, responsibility of debts. Seems like a very amicable divorce.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I don't even know why we need you.
I've made a very hard decision, Sonny. Billy and I are moving back to Atlanta. I've got a firm job offer from Stanhope Clinic, and you know what that means to me. Plus, Billy has his cousins and his grandparents there.
No way, Caroline. No way are you taking my kid out of this state.
Sonny, we already agreed he should stay with me. Now, you just have to accept that I have my own life now.
Yeah, well, I have my own life, too. And a big part of that includes being a father.
And I'm kind of going back into episode 1 where Crockett was late to Billy's birthday party. He definitely wants to be part of his son's life, as small as it's obviously going to be. But going back to that episode 1, where he loves his son dearly, there's no way in heck that he's going to let his wife move out of state with his kid. It's just not going to happen.
That's correct. That's how it kind of left. And that was the other major subplot, but that's as much as we got. Really, the main storyline is going to go back to Crockett and Tubbs in pursuit of the Jamaicans and particularly Desmond Maxwell.
This is where we move forward to the 2 newer detectives that they have the bet with Crockett and Tubbs. They do pretty much a preliminary meet with what ends up being the Jamaicans. They get shot up. One of them gets killed. One of them gets seriously injured, rushed to the hospital. And then, to say the least, Rodriguez is slightly upset that they went without backup. Nobody was there with them. But then again, this was only supposed to be a preliminary meet.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. And again, they were, they could hear something about an El Dorado, but it wasn't quite specific. So that's why they had Lester to clean it up. And then they get a little bit more information about Desmond Maxwell, and they find out that who did time with Desmond in Atlanta? None other than the Noog Man. So now they know that this guy is holding out big time on him, and he's just trying to play him for the fool, just to save his own hide and get out of jail. So now they go visit Noogie in the clink, and they tell him, we want to meet up with Desmond, and Noogie was a little bit reluctant to that. And then Crockett to ask him if he knows somebody by the name of Boogaloo Jones on C Block. Noogie describes him as being maybe a big gargantuan monster, and this is where. And what did Crockett do with that information after that? He basically used it as leverage to get. He was going to make. He was going to do what he could to get Boogaloo Jones to be Noogie to be. Well, we can't say it like this, but be his bitch. So that's how they press Noogie into setting up the drug deal with Maxwell.
Noogie's pretty much going to be a pawn in all of this, unbeknownst to him. He knows he wants to be the informant. He wants to be in good with Vice, I guess you could say. But in this particular episode, in this particular scene, Noogie's more nothing than a pawn.
Right, a stooge for them. What Crockett was doing with Boogaloo Jones is this is a big guy, and he's going to if Noogie wasn't going to agree to help him make set up a deal to meet Maxwell, he was going to make sure that Noogie became his Boogaloo's little buddy in jail. Noogie knew what that meant, so he agreed. They set it up, and then we head into the nightclub where they're going to be meeting Maxwell, and you hear We're Jamming by Bob Marley and the Wailers being covered by another band that's kind of like just background music for there. They do eventually meet Maxwell, and that's, as you said before, their deal, the terms that they wanted from Maxwell was $300,000 for 10 keys of cocaine. From there, Crockett, Maxwell was kind of reluctant at first, but then he goes along with it. And what Crockett does is he gives Noogie's cell phone number to Maxwell as a contact, and that's where Tubbs had reservations about that.
Yes, Tubbs definitely did have reservations about Crockett giving Noogie's phone number to Desmond. That's something you just don't do with a witness or a bystander or anything like that. It's one thing within the role of being undercover, doing undercover work, where you would kind of play with them like that. But doing that to a witness or a bystander is something that even Crockett probably realized that he shouldn't have done. It's also one thing if Noogie were to be involved in this, knowingly involved, saying, yes, give him my phone number, we'll set him up, whatever. But Noogie, this is unbeknownst to him that his number was given to Desmond, so even Noogie's probably going to be surprised.
Yep.
You just gave a dude Noogie's number?
Yeah, I figured it'd read better than the downtown precinct.
You gonna tell Noogie?
If I do, he wouldn't go through with it. Besides, he'll be covered. It's called baiting the trap, Tubbs.
You know what you're doing, man? You're hanging that dude out to dry.
Yeah, I'm endangering the guy's life, and I'm not telling him.
Hey, man, you're cutting too many corners.
What, you don't?
And then as they leave the nightclub, Rodriguez gives Tubbs a call and tells him, hey, the shooters were caught by homicide. The operation is a no-go, it's off. And they basically cut Noogie loose on the street. Then it segues into Crockett and Tubbs interrogating this suspect who had the white van that they were shot up at in the very first scene. And this guy keeps denying it. Then he says, we stole the van. The van was abandoned. And then
Don't forget this guy they were interrogating. He had a black eye, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He was all disheveled at the hands of another detective, pretty much playing a bad cop.
Yep, the homicide detective worked him over to try to get the information. So, and this guy's at this point beside himself. As they're walking out of there, Lester brings in the cleanup tape. They're all sitting down, OCB sitting down listening to it. And what they hear is 3 Jamaicans, Red Eldorado, and they realize that the Jamaicans had dumped the van, homicide had the wrong guys, and now they know, oops, Noogie is at risk because he's out there on his own right now.
Noogie's not on his own. He's basically in the hands of the Jamaicans now. They've got him at gunpoint in their apartment. OCB's formulating a game plan to get him out of there, and as well as to capture these Jamaicans. This is where they then head to Noogie's crib. The Noog man hangs out. They pretty much go in.
Crockett goes in he, again, looking to meet with Maxwell, and then the terms, hey, like you said in the beginning, I show me mine, you show me yours. Okay, the money, it's down in my car, and that's where when they get one of the gunmen down there, he opens up the trunk to the Spider, and Tubbs tases him, knocks that guy out, and then Tubbs assumes that role as the gunman, and then Crockett and Tubbs go back up to Noogie's apartment. Pretty much, the gig's up, they start just opening up on these guys, and it was just a big gun battle.
Gun battle at the OK Corral.
Gun battle at the OK Corral, or in this case, Noogie's Corral.
This scene is very reminiscent of the scene in Scarface when Tony Montana was first starting to work out drug deals and stuff, where they go to the hotel on Ocean Drive there in Miami Beach to get the yayo. Where's the money? It's close by, man. You got the stuff, man? It's close by too, man. I believe nobody really wanted to show their hand directly. Just like in Scarface, they don't want to show their hand here as well. So, fly pelicans. Well, I don't know how Tubbs knew what the Jamaican was going to be wearing, but he kind of had the same clothes on as him.
Yeah, he did have the same clothes on him. And so, I guess you would have to make an assumption that he took that guy's clothes and put them on, but it was not really specific about that. So at that point, Noogie gets taken hostage and he's held at gunpoint, and then another, gunfire ensues, and then he gets struck, and I think it was just in the shoulder. To me, it was not clear whether, the rest, more Jamaicans were dead in that apartment, but it wasn't clear to me what happened to Maxwell, or did he actually get caught by the rest of OCB outside? I didn't really catch
it
that
was very, very vague. Did they all die? After all this, next scene is at the hospital. At the end of that scene, when the dust settles, we learn that the detective has come out of his coma. So going on to the next day, we see Crockett and Tubbs walking up to the hospital to go visit him. And then who do we see coming out? But nothing but Noogie.
Hey, Noogie. We're just on our way to see you, man.
Hey, glad to see you all right, man.
You guys are too late. I'm out of here, man.
I brought you a present.
You guys are something else. You know that? You try to get me bumped by 3 crazed Jamaicans, and you buy me a box of candy, and you think everything is cool? Let's see what kind of candy this is. Turtles? I hate turtles, man!
He's all stitched up, ready to go into the world. This is where I guess they want to make amends to him, and they offered him a kind of consolation prize. What was that consolation prize, Tim?
Ooh, I don't remember, Mark. What were they?
Oh, could be another turtles. I hate turtles.
He hates turtles, right? But guess what? Noogman took turtles, and then
he took them anyways.
One of his lady friends shows up, and the world was right with Nougart Neville Lamont.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
Society's antidote.
Don't stop till the break of dawn. I send a skip, jog, what can I say? I can't fit them all inside my OJ, so I just take half, suss the mic, trick the trill. I said, hey, baby, by the way, what's your name? She said, I go by the name of Lois Lane. You can be my boyfriend, you surely can. Just let me put my boyfriend called Superman. I said, he's a fairy, I do suppose. Fly through the air and plant the holes in my
And with that, we'd like to bring this episode of Vice of Miami podcast to a close. Tim and I appreciate each and every one of you listening, and we once again would like to thank Kenny from MASH 4077 podcast for guiding and steering us along starting this podcast. Please spread the word about our show and comment and rate us on your podcast platforms. We'll see you next time for Vice of Miami show number 5, where we discuss episode 4 of Miami Vice, Calderon's Return, part number 1.
You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Vice of Miami Podcast, or email us at viceofmiamishow@gmail.com.
Please rate us and comment on the episodes and spread the word about the show. On YouTube, press the like button and subscribe bell.
Attention, attention. Are you a fan of MASH, one of the most groundbreaking television series in history? Then take a listen to the MASH 4077 podcast, where hosts discuss their thoughts episode by episode. They will also share with you some little-known behind-the-scenes information, trivia, and so much more. So come and find them on iTunes by searching MASH 4077 podcast or online at www.mash4077podcast.com.
Okay, and just for a little bit of fun, you may want to turn the volume down a tad. If you are a true audiophile and know how to listen to an image or how to see sound, take a listen to this clip and hopefully you could figure it out. We'll give you a clue on our next show.